So in an edit to this first video I'm going to post, firstly I'd like to say that all the information in it was passed to me either by trans support groups or outreach workers. I'm not a doctor, so take anything I say about hormones with a pinch of salt. I'd also like to say, stupid mistake, should have fact checked before I recorded the video. The wait for the Leeds Gender Clinic is currently only about 2.5 years, I say only. So this next video is answering questions that I posted on a Facebook group, just so the girls on there could get to know me a little bit better and to give me a bit of confidence, like explaining, well, who I am and what I've been through. Okay, so enjoy. Hi. So this is questions you've always wanted to ask a transsexual woman. I've taken all your questions and written them down. I'm going to answer them as best I can. Okay, so here goes. So the first one on my list is, what is the difference between transsexual and transgender? And there's two answers to that question. There's how things are seen socially and how things are legally. Socially, people always see transgender as someone that's changing gender, as that's how it sounds, and I'm not kind of going to sort of split hairs about that one. However, if we're looking at it legally, transsexual is someone that either has or intends to change gender, where transgender is an umbrella term that covers everything. So it covers from what we call HPWs to cross-dressers to transvestites and transsexuals, so it covers all bases. If you're wondering what I mean by HPW, it's something I've had a good laugh about with friends before now. It's sort of one that's become known in the community. It stands for hairy panty wearer. So imagine your middle-aged, very overweight, balding bloke with way too much body hair trying to stuff himself in his wife's knickers. That's a HPW. Second one on my list is, when did I first know I was trans? For most people, you start realising at a very early age, usually by at least 8 years old. You'll know. For me, it was certainly around that time, between 8 and 10. For some people, it's later on in life when they go through puberty and they get certain neurological changes. Then it's sort of like that triggers in the mind then that something isn't right. For me, it was certainly towards the end of primary school, start of high school, that I definitely knew for sure that something wasn't right, but I didn't really know what trans was then. The prime example for me was get ready for PE lessons. So when we did PE in primary school, everybody got changed in the classroom. You all had the same white vests, the same white underwear. Everybody looked the same. Of course, then the next year you go off into high school, you go for your PE lesson, you're in separate changing rooms, everybody starts getting undressed, all of a sudden the lads have got boxers on, you're like, oh, hang on, this isn't right. I feel a bit different, this isn't me. And so that was a big trigger there. Do I feel accepted by my family? Overwhelmingly yes, for the most part. My family, my mum, my dad, they've all been really accepting of me. It was very emotional telling my mum. I was very paranoid about it. I always thought they wouldn't accept me. I thought they'd disown me. I thought they'd run a mile. But I was at a quite literal do or die moment when I told my mum I was on the verge of suicide. And I called up one of my best friends. I asked her to come down. I really needed to tell my mum, and I had it in my mind, if my mum accepted me, then I could move forward, and if she didn't, that was it. And well, thankfully, she accepted me. All she ever said was that we love you no matter who you are. So obviously that was brilliant, really emotional. Looking back on it, when I told my dad, so I told him at separate times, because I was always very scared of telling my dad. He always seemed very homophobic. So I did the same thing. So when I went to tell my dad, obviously I find him back tears, and he eventually said, look, Dad, I'm transsexual. And my mum's piped in and said, well, tell him what it means. And he sat there with that sort of attitude, I know what it means. So, all right. And my mum says, well, go on then, what does it mean? He says, it means you like both men and women. I says, no, Dad, that's not what it means. It means I am a woman. and you could see the relief on his face that he didn't think I was sleeping with men. I've not told him the whole sexuality thing. Gender's enough for now. So that was good. Like I say, they've been really supportive. They've been there every step for me. They can't do enough. Had an incident with one family member, but I'll sort of circle back to that later. A really good one. How did I choose my name? I like this one because it does have a little bit of the story behind it. So I was always known as Vicky or Victoria when I first started dressing, and that name I picked after going on a transgender support website, and I posted a picture of me fully dressed for the first time. I said, look, I'm looking to choose a name. A lot of girls feminize their own name, and for some that works, some they still want that link. I didn't. Personally, I don't like it. If you can completely reinvent yourself. Do you know what I mean? You can have a bit of imagination about things. Also, don't confuse it with drag names as well. Drag is something very different to being trans, and they tend to go for funny names, if you will. A few of the ones in Blackpool, so there's Tsunami, there's Demigod, there's, I say, trans is very different to that. So I posted a picture on a transgender website as for a list of suggestions, if you will, and I just went through them and I was like, actually, Victoria really suited. So that was my first name. Unlike a lot of trans people, I changed my surname as well. So for about 12 months before I actually came out as trans, I worked in a Blackpool club. And I was a private members sort of place. I used to have a work reception or the bar or do tours of the building. And so I say I do a tour and finish, and they go, oh, so what was your name? I say, oh, it's Vicky Darling. And Darling just stuck as a surname, so that's where Darling comes from. What surgery have I had? That's again, really good one. People get really focused on surgeries with trans people, and there's 3 types of transsexuals. There's pre-op, so you are intending upon having an operation but you haven't had anything yet. There's post-op, you've had everything done, and there are non-op transsexuals. Genitals do not define gender. It's very easy to get focused on that. Genitals are down here, gender's up here. You can see why people get focused on it. But I have had a total of 2 surgeries. One was for a burst appendix, and one was for a really bad muscle tear and inguinal hernia that's left a 7.5-inch scar in my groin. But none of those surgeries were anything to do with any sort of gender reassignment. I've had absolutely nothing that way yet. People get focused on, if you just go have the operation and say it's done. It's not that simple. When I got my referral to the gender clinic, I was told the wait was about 18 months. The target wait time is 18 weeks. They were on 18 months. They have an outreach worker. In the meantime, when I first spoke to her, she said, you're looking more like 2.5 years. Since then, there was an expose done on the Victoria Derbyshire show, and they showed the wait for Leeds Gender Clinic, where I've been referred, to be up to 4 years. If you think you've waited a long time for a doctor's appointment, try a 4-year wait. And obviously that's going to go up at the moment with COVID-19 because those workers are being reassigned to more essential care, and that's something that, well, it needs doing. It's not something I'm ever going to complain about. If I've got to wait, I've got to wait. Once you're in the gender clinic as well, it's roughly about a 4-year process. There are several surgeries, there are hormones, there's laser hair removal, there's voice coaching. I'll circle back to sort of hormones in a bit as well, but they'll soften the skin slightly, they'll make your body hair drop off. They're not guaranteed to give you breasts. Everyone reacts differently to the hormones, and there's a lot of risk involved as well. Once you've taken them, you're taking them for life, And if you stop taking them, you risk osteoporosis, you risk various cancers, and there's an awful lot of risk there for something that's not guaranteed to do that much for you. If all it's going to do is make my body hair drop off, Gillette already took care of that. Am I married and does she support me? Yes, I am married, or I was married. It's still very delicate, shall we say. We separated before I came out as trans, but we still live together. We still wear our wedding rings, but we wear them on the right hand rather than the left. I don't often speak much about my relationship because it is very complicated and we do see things very, very differently. But yes, since coming out, she has been very, very supportive of me. I've got to admit, I've got it a lot better than a lot of girls have. My family support me, my friends support me, my wife supports me. So that's why I'm looking to help others, because I have had it easier than any trans woman I know. Are people still naive? Yes, people are still very naive for the most part. I've had 2 transphobic hate crime incidents that have where it's been necessary to involve the police. Don't speak much about those because one of them is still being investigated by the police, so I don't want to comment too much on there. But yes, some people are still very naive. I live down in Fleetwood. The difference between Fleetwood and Blackpool is amazing. I can go out in Blackpool and not be noticed. I am 6'2". I've got a passion for ridiculously high heels. I will go out wearing at least a 6-inch heel. So there we go. I'm 6'8". I'm trans. You would think I would be noticed. People quite literally bump into me in Blackpool and apologise with "sorry, I didn't see you," which is quite frankly amazing. However, down in Fleetwood, people will stop, stare. I have had people try and videotape me walking around the shops. I've had people stand and stare. I like going out with some friends sometimes because some of my friends, I don't notice people looking that much anymore, but my friends do, and they love watching other people's reactions to me. It can be quite something when you start paying attention. Really good question next. How do people address me that knew me as male beforehand? For the most part, they address me as Vicky. People do slip every now and again, but being tolerant is as much about me tolerating them as them tolerating me. So there are people in my life that have known me all my life, so that was very difficult for them to start calling me by a different name. It only took a matter of weeks really for most people to get in the habit, and like I say, it's not really been too much of an issue. The only slight funny one is with my mum. She's got a really bad habit of calling me son. She doesn't realise she's doing it though. So since I came out, she's always referred to me as Vicky. She calls me by name, she calls me Vicky. However, she'll run off into a string of sentences telling me about something, and then she'll go, "Well, you know what I mean, son, don't you?" And she doesn't realise she's saying son. But she always makes that conscious effort to call me Vicky, but doesn't realise when she says son. But apart from that, everyone just refers to me as Vicky. It's never been an issue. Was transition easy or hard? It was a hell of a lot easier than I thought. I had everything really built up in my mind that everything was going to be difficult, people would be intolerant, people wouldn't accept me, and I had quite the opposite. So I work as a manager in a Blackpool bar, and so I was really paranoid about that sort of environment. Lots of drunk young men coming in, and what sort of comments I'd get, what abuse I'd get, and naff all of that materialised really. So yeah, that's been really, really good. It's a lot easier than I thought, but like I say, not everybody has had it that way. When did I decide to transition? I've been living as female since the 1st of December 2019. So not that long really. I got my referral to the gender clinic before I actually came out as trans. And well, it was a long process for me. I always knew I was trans, but there were certain escalating factors. So it's difficult for me to say even now. So in October of 2018, our daughter was born sleeping. Sorry. That was a big escalating factor. I know a lot of people have been through the same or similar, and that was really hard for me to process because I couldn't process that loss as a father, especially when I felt like a mother, and that was really, really difficult. Shortly after that, I lost my uncle. He was only, I think, 54 at the time, and he dropped dead suddenly, massive heart attack. And I hadn't realised what a big influence on my life he was as well. I did the same qualifications he did, the same degree. I applied to the same university. We had the same hobbies. He bought me my first computer. I did computer systems engineering. And so that was a sort of massive shock. And then at his funeral, I found out that my brother-in-law had an inoperable brain tumour. And all of this just started really, really piling up on me, and realised that life is way too short. And I had 2 ways to go. So I went back to that quite literal do or die moment. It was transition or nothing. So that was one of the big factors. The other, sadly, was blackmail. So circling back to, as I said, I would do family support me, is that the first person I told I was trans in my family was my sister, who initially was very, very supportive. And knowing that we both struggle with mental health, we'd lost family to suicide before now, we'd both been at that point ourselves, I decided to reach out to my sister in an effort to support each other. And I told her the big thing I was struggling with was being trans. And for the most part, she was very, very supportive until the day she didn't get her way. And it was coming back from our holiday, her wedding in Barbados. So I spent roughly £3,500 to get myself and my family out there. And we had a disagreement in the airport on the way back. She wasn't getting her way with something and threatened to expose me, knowing that at the time I was so scared of coming out, of what people would think about my parents leaving me. She decided to use that against me. So sadly, blackmail was one of the reasons I came out, and I decided, excuse the language, but fuck you, I will do things my way. And well, that was that. Just circling back to that point of the depression, suicide as well. One of the things I always iterate is that the suicide rates amongst trans people is over 30%. Across the general population, it's just 2%. So 30% of trans people will end up committing suicide. Such is the struggle and the depression until they do come out, and even the struggles then after. Okay, last question I have on a brighter note. It's asked about trans athletes and my opinion on them. It's not something I've ever done any research on, and I don't like commenting on something like that without doing the research, and that's the problem a lot of people have. They form opinions without knowing the facts. There was a case of an athlete, a runner, posting respectable times when he was running as male, but not particularly winning anything, posting the same times after transitioning to female and winning championships. And I can see why people start freaking out about that. Like I say, I don't know much about the individual case, and I don't like commenting too much, but what I do know, so circling back to hormones, as I said earlier, one of the side effects of taking hormones, and yes, they affect everyone differently, is that you can lose up to 30% of your muscle mass. So if that person has transitioned, is taking those hormones, and is still posting decent times, they must be working out bloody hard. So, I mean, you can guess where I stand on that one. Oh, thanks for taking the time to listen, guys. I've tried to keep it as short as I can, hopefully not ramble too much, and I look forward to your responses. Bye.